A Wargamer's Guide to the Desert War, 1940 to 1943 by Daniel Mersey. This is an interesting book that I got a couple of years ago, and yeah, it's a strange one. It's so rather than it being a book, just about the Desert War from a historical point of view, or a war game scenario book, this is, well, as it says, it's a Wargamer's Guide to the Desert War. So what does that actually mean? So essentially, this is a book for someone who, if you don't know too much about the war in North Africa, but you would like to game it because the idea of big, huge tank battles and the actions that took place appeal to you, then this is something I would recommend. If you already know quite a bit about the Desert War, I don't know that you'd have much use for this. However, as we go through, you'll see that that's not necessarily the case. So the book includes, we'll have a look at the contents page here. So it does start out with a brief history, the Desert War. It tells you what happened, essentially, the kind of battles that were fought, etc. That goes on for about 12, 13 pages. Then we get into the kind of Wargamer's Guide section. So if we go to page 14, we have armies, organization, and equipment. So again, if you don't know much about it, this is a great place to start because it goes through here. It tells you the organizations of the armies, gives you recommended reading for where you can find out more about them. Then we go through here and it tells you the rough kind of, it's not really a table of organization and equipment in the more sort of detailed sense of what one of those is, but it does tell you, for example, here, British Infantry Brigade has 3 battalions. A battalion has 4 rifle companies plus support. A rifle company has 3 platoons. A platoon has 3 rifle sections, and a rifle section has 10 men. So just within those few bullet points there, you can play a game at almost any scale. If you wanted to do a game of bolt action or chain of command, you know that a platoon has 3 rifle sections. If you were playing something a bit bigger, like Blitzkrieg Commander, a rifle company has 3 platoons or a battalion. And if you were playing something like Spearhead, then up here you can see that a whole brigade has got 3 battalions. It doesn't go any higher than that, so it doesn't tell you about divisions. But I think for most people, that scale and that amount of detail is going to be absolutely perfect. Then it goes into some of the equipment. So this doesn't give you any stats, obviously, because this isn't designed to be a guide for a particular game, but it just tells you, roughly, for example, Matilda 2 tells you its armament, it had a range of 70 miles, and it gives you some notes. So, flicking through this and having a look at some of the equipment, by the end of it, you'll have a pretty good idea of the kind of gear that was being used by both sides and the advantages and disadvantages, so that when you then go to have a game and you see, you're looking at purchasing an anti-tank gun for the British in North Africa, and you see what options are available, you know roughly what you're looking at. Once we get past that, it goes into a guide about how to paint. This, I think, is very good, actually. It gives you a couple of ideas on how to actually paint figures, so you can use washes on infantry. It recommends blacklining your armoured fighting vehicles. Gives you some ideas on how to do the bases, etc. And then this is what's really good. It gives you the Vallejo model colour, like what Daniel Mersey recommends as colours to use. So British uniform, he recommends Iraqi sand or dark sand, and even gives you the code. So if you really had no idea and you wanted a place to go to find what paints you need, then this is great. None of this is stuff that you can't just find out online, but it's nice to have it in one volume. You can sit there, with a nice hot drink and go through this, and you can plan everything out when it comes to preparing your North Africa wargame armies, and it's all in one place. It goes into detail about tactical markings on the tanks and things, and then I like this section as well. It goes into some detail about how to wargame the campaign. So it doesn't give you any detailed. There's no detailed instructions on this is what to do, this is how to do it. It's more kind of advice. So it's telling you how a campaign set in the desert would go. How it should feel. How you can make it feel a bit more realistic, the kinds of tactics that were used, the terrain, and it says here, if encountered at all, roads, they're unlikely to be well maintained, and their only practical use on the tabletop is to pick an easier path through other rougher terrain. So just in that description there, it's telling you that a desert terrain board should be quite rough, very barren, and if there are roads, they should just be, dirt tracks. So it's giving you a good idea for terrain, the sorts of terrain you can use, etc. We'll go through here. It's got some information here on line of sight, tank tactics, some nice information. And then if we just flick towards the back of the book, there's some nice pictures in here, giving you some inspiration. So, the book is catering for all sorts of different scales, whether you're doing skirmish or, larger battles. So I think that's great. And then we have some more information here on tactics, infantry tactics, armored tactics. And then if we flick towards the end, it's got some recommendations here on the types of rules. So, I think this is a good location for this section of the book. If you've read through all of this, you've seen the tactics, you've seen the organization, you've learned what kind of battles took place, you've had a brief history of the war in the desert. By now, you might be thinking, okay, I really want to do, long-range desert group actions against, Italian airfields. Or you might say, okay, I want to play the entire, battle of, Operation Battle Axe on my 6-foot table. Then this is the section that you need. So it goes through here, different scales of game. So if you wanted to do a divisional game, it's up here. You can do platoon games, and then it gives you a brief idea of what rules you can use. So we've got battle group there, blitzkrieg commander, bolt action, chain of command, both very good games. Crossfire is an excellent game. Desert Rats, I've not heard of Desert Rats actually. There might be one to look up. Flames of War. Most people have heard of Flames of War, very popular. I've not played it myself. And yeah, Iron Cross, Kiss Rommel. So these are this is for bigger games. So we've got Operation Squad if you want really small games. Panzer Corps is another game which has been around for a while. That's very popular. That's lets you play huge battles. And then Rapid Fire. And then we go into how to choose your models. It's got, basic information, but I think if you're not sure, especially if you're new to wargaming, this is excellent. Not just for the Desert Campaign, but just World War II gaming in general. All of these companies which people won't run into typically. I think it's great that they're in here, and it's giving you a good, indication of what you can get, what kind of scales you can get, recommended companies. I think it's very good, and it's all laid out in size of figures. So it recommends. So if you want 6mm, you go to CNC, GHQ, Heroics and Roz, etc. And there we have some scenarios at the end. So there are actually some scenarios in here. Obviously, they're quite not vague, but obviously they can't give you points and everything. But it gives you a general idea of a scenario you can play with a game, and then you just have to do a little bit of work on your part to work out, points and things, and if certain rules would work, etc., for victory conditions. And that brings us to the end of the game. There's a nice little appendix at the back here with some further reading and an index. Indexes are always helpful. So, The Desert War, 1940 to 1943, a Wargamer's Guide by Daniel Mersey. Yes, I think it's a very useful book. As I said at the beginning, I think it'd be more useful if you were someone who was new to the Desert War, or you were new to wargaming in general. That said, I do think the information in there about the scenarios and some of the organizational descriptions of some of the units that fought would still be valuable to someone who was a bit more of a seasoned wargamer. But yeah, I think it's definitely not a bad one to have on your bookshelf and in your collection. So yeah, I'm pretty sure there's some others that have been written. I'm not sure if they're all by Daniel Mersey, but I know there are some other, Wargamer's Guide too. This is a small series. I'm not sure if it's still going, but this is the only one that I know of in terms of what it's called and what sort of topic it covers. If there's any others that you recommend, or any other kind of Wargamer's Guide to style books, that you recommend, then do let me know, because this is a new kind of genre of reading which I'm just getting into. in the past, whenever I'm doing research into wargaming, and I'm always just using the internet. But it's you know, as far as this goes, I think it's great to have it all in a book. It's all in one place, and it's designed specifically for the wargamer. Whereas, you know, if you're looking stuff up online, that's not always the case. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.